Hi everyone, welcome to a little solo episode from yours truly to bring season 1 to a close. I'm really proud of each and every episode that made up this season, and I kind of wanted to take a beat and sort of honour the guests and the work that went into making the season, and to share some reflections and lessons that I've learned along the way and kind of want to take with me into season 2. So I hope you'll enjoy this episode. The first thing is that no matter how much you plan, things can and will go wrong, and that is totally okay. I'll start with my very first episode with Megan Smith. Megan is a dear friend of mine and one of the very first people to say yes to being on the podcast before it even existed. And Tanya Sarah, who came on for episode 5, is another friend who said yes really early on. And again, it kind of just did so much for my confidence. And I'm so grateful to them for that early yes, because I think when you're building something from scratch, those early yeses mean so much. And it also holds you accountable because you've now told people about the thing you're doing and they've agreed to be part of it. And so now there's really no choice. You sort of have to follow through. So anyway, all that to say, recording my first episode with Megan meant something to me. And it was after we'd recorded the entire episode, I realised that actually the video was completely glitchy and totally unusable. And it was entirely an issue with the internet at my end. And because I'm a perfectionist and it was my very first episode, and you're sort of in this quite vulnerable space at that time, I was super disappointed in myself. And I think it was around 11 p.m. at night, and I just remember being so deflated and just not feeling great. And I also felt like I had let Megan down by not being able to kind of provide the accompanying video, which sounds silly, but Megan, being the kind, lovely human being that she is, was totally unfazed. And actually, when I look at that episode now, her insights and her personality kind of really come through in the audio version anyway. So it was a wonderful episode regardless, and one that I'm really proud of. But yeah, it was like an early snafu. But it was a super, super important lesson for me to learn early on, because even with the best will in the world, there are things that are out of my control. And if those things do go wrong, it's really not the end of the world. And I have had many technical difficulties since that first episode, and I'm sure I'm going to have more. And whilst it is still frustrating, it doesn't quite pack the same punch as it did when it happened for the very first time. The second thing is I have learned that you just kind of need to get used to feeling uncomfortable. So at first, reaching out to strangers that I admired to ask them to be on the podcast felt deeply, deeply uncomfortable to me. Imposter syndrome crept in, and I would often procrastinate or kind of talk myself out of doing it, or just wouldn't go up to them at the event that I had specifically attended in order to meet them. And I remember it also felt really strange to say to people in real life that I had a podcast. It felt like I wasn't legitimate enough to be able to say that. I don't know. It felt foreign on my tongue. And it was also very uncomfortable. It still is very uncomfortable for me to watch myself on video. And actually, I try not to do it too much because I don't think it's healthy, at least for me. There have been so many times when I have had to stop myself from kind of picking apart my appearance or my voice or obsessing over saying something silly during a conversation, and it is exhausting. I kept doing it though, and over time, with each guest and each episode, it has felt a little less uncomfortable. And with every episode under my belt, I feel less and less like an imposter and more like I have a platform of real value for my guests and for women in the world more generally. So I think the trick, and I'm not saying anything new here because everyone says this, but it really is true. The trick is to keep doing the hard thing, no matter how weird or uncomfortable it might feel, because one day it will feel easy, and more importantly, it will feel true. The third and kind of final reflection I had and want to talk about is how the podcast has changed me. So before I launched it, I knew I wanted to make something that I needed in the world. something that would help me. And I knew I wanted to feel inspired by other women. But beyond that, I hadn't quite figured out what shape this thing would take. And I think at the time I'd kind of underestimated how much of a shift simply asking questions and listening would create, both within me and also in others. The podcast has made my world bigger. And that's not just in the obvious way that, I now know so many more women from all over the world doing incredible things, but also in a kind of intangible way, because those women's stories, their wisdom, their achievements, how they navigate life, all of that has made me more courageous in my own life and has made my dreams feel entirely within reach. It's sort of like after you read a story or watch a film with a powerful female heroine, you end up wanting to imbue something of theirs, whether it's their energy, their confidence, their way of seeing the world, their wisdom. That's kind of how I feel after every episode, after every guest. And that, I think, is a gift that I have given to myself. And that's how I hope you feel as well after you listen to each episode. So, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this solo episode. I would love to hear what you think about the podcast, so please do leave a review. I say it all the time, but it makes such a difference to a new podcast like this one, and your feedback is super helpful to me as I work on season 2. If you would like to hit the follow button and give the podcast some extra love, that would also be very, very welcome. But otherwise, see you soon for season 2.